Hey everybody, this is Will and welcome to Sunday Sound Design Episode 1, the show where we become better sound designers by deconstructing some of our favorite patches and presets and trying to re-engineer them from scratch to learn what the sound designers that created the initial patch did to make it sound so great. So for today's preset and patch, I'm going to actually be using a preset from the Ambient Pads Patch Collection for Ableton Live 11 Suite. Now, I may be cheating a little bit because this is a patch and preset that I created that I'll be deconstructing, but I think there's still value to this one because this is one of my favorite pad sounds and it's been so long since I've created this that I really don't remember how I did it. So we'll deconstruct this, figure it out together. And if you want to download this patch at the end for free, the reconstructed version of this, you can do that. Just follow the link in the description of this video to download that for free. So let's dive in. The patch we're using today is called Epic Pad. And the first thing I'm going to do in order to make this really playable and fun, I'm going to go to Command M to Midi Map this. I'm going to select the filter frequency on this patch, and then I'm going to go to my keyboard here that I have, and I'm going to move this fader so that that fader is mapped to the frequency, so that as I play and move that fader, that it's going to correspond in Ableton Live. So let's hit Command M to get out of that. We'll close our browser up and we're just going to play this patch for a little bit. Now, I will say one of my favorite things when I'm starting a patch is to actually push the filter frequency all the way up. So I'm going to start all the way up with this guy so you can hear from that kind of position, that location, and then we'll make it ambient because it is from the warm Ambient Patch Collection. So it should be on the warmer side, but you'll be surprised at what it sounds like when we first start. So here we go. Yeah, I mean, that is super fun to mess with, to play with. Again, one of my favorite things about this patch is we can literally go from this to that really simply, right? To just something really warm. You hear the shimmery type sound, which I could change. And let's even bring that up so you hear even more shimmer if we wanted. We could bring up even more verb if we wanted here. Probably a little too much shimmer there, maybe a little too much verb, but you can hear how flexible and fun this patch is. So let's see if we can break this down and recreate it. Now, one of my favorite things to do when I'm recreating a patch is first to open up and wherever I'm creating the patch, and for the sake of this video, we're in Ableton Live 11 Suite. For the sake of this, figure out what devices in Ableton Live the sound designer used and what effects they're using. So in this case, I used an instrument rack, and instrument racks are really essential if you're going to do sound design in live. So I'm going to click the Show Devices button to see this. First thing I'm going to notice is I used Operator to create this. So Operator is one of my favorite synthesizers, devices included in live. It uses FM synthesis, which don't ask me to explain what that means, but I just know it makes things really warm sounding. You get a lot of cool bell tones, a lot of really cool warm vibes, right? It's great for pads and patches. And Operator is my favorite synth in live, and Wavetable is my second favorite. So I started with Operator. Next, I have all these different effects. What's kind of fun when I'm working with patches like this is to take effects off one at a time and just listen to what kind of effect that they had. What was the sound? What was their kind of intent that they had in the sound? So here's our verb off. Okay, so that's what our patch sounds like with the verb off. Let's bring the verb on. And in particular, the way this verb rack is created, this is a rack that I created that's reused on a lot of my patches so that I don't have to redo the work of creating a reverb that also has shimmer included in it. We'll walk through that in a second, but a lot of fun things there. Next is this delay effect. I honestly am not sure what that's doing. Oh, there you go. You can kind of hear it. So listen to like the upper end part and you can hear the repeats of that. And I'll even increase the dry wet so you can hear it a little more. It's pretty subtle, but it's kind of a nice effect. So on. Pull my hand off real quick. You can hear that. Let's increase the dry wet. Get out a little out of control for a second. Okay. And we'll bring that back down. And then we take the delay out. It's not really doing a whole lot tonally. It's just adding some warmth to it. It's adding some like regeneration to it. And it's going to keep kind of this self-oscillating type thing going, which I'm a fan of with pad type sounds. You have to be careful because it will get out of control if you're not careful, but kind of a nice little subtle thing. Next is chorus. And I imagine I know the role the chorus is playing. It's just thickening things up. I honestly, I almost like it without the chorus, but the chorus is just kind of a nice thing there. We can move this modulation up to get a little more movement. Oh, actually, I guess that's mapped. So let's do it this way. There we go. So that's a little wild. Bring it back into tune. Just adds a little motion, or you take it out. Again, I could take it or leave it, but that's the goal of that is to kind of thicken the pad patch. That's one of my favorite sounds from my Juno synthesizer, is the chorus that's built into the Juno in particular. Sounds really, really good. So kind of just trying to mimic that vibe and adding a little bit of motion to that patch. We got obviously tons of reverb on it, so we don't need ambience, we don't need space, we just have a little bit of motion to that. So now we're back to operator. This is our default stock sound. Okay, first let's open our filter up. So I'm going to bring that all the way up, and I'm using the built-in filter on the device itself. Okay, now to save ourselves some time, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this operator, and we'll start from scratch with operator. But I don't want to cheat. There's a couple things I, just looking at this, remember that I did that really change and shape the sound that I want to mention. First thing, I'm using multiple oscillators. Let's turn all of these off. Okay, so we just have this first one here. Okay, so there's our first oscillator. It's a saw wave. Okay, so digital saw wave. That's the wave that we have there. That's what that sounds like. Let's turn our filter off for a second. Okay, our level is down to 13 dB. The other thing I should mention, the algorithm that we're on, which is super important here, is we're on this one to where each one of our oscillators kind of operate independently instead of affecting each other, which is really nice because we get some really complex, like rich sounds that really use the FM synthesis to make that happen. This particular algorithm keeps them all separate. It's not right or wrong. It's just a great way to kind of mess with those and redo those and see what happens, right? See what you find that you like. So we're on this algorithm. The other thing that I know that I did change on this was increase the spread. So let's decrease that all the way down. It's not bad sounding, but it sounds a little lifeless. Like it doesn't sound as wide and as big as I want that to sound. And particularly for me, when I am making pads, I want those to be as wide and as stereo rich as possible, and as much as they can be. And in particular, this one, without spread, sounds a little dull. So again, here's what it sounds like without it, and then we'll turn it on and try it. Okay, let's bring it back on all the way to 100% now. Yeah, so you can tell that, again, that just thickens it up. That makes it a little wider sounding. And for me, when I'm doing pad stuff, anything that can make it wide, bigger goes to about 100% almost all the time. Okay, so that's a look at our first oscillator there. The other thing we did with the filter in particular, you can see some of the settings that I have here for ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. You could copy those if you wanted to in your software choice. But let's turn our filter on. One thing I did in particular on this is change our filter type. So I went from clean to OSR, which is kind of replicating a Oscar synth, at least the filter bits or innards, as we say in North Carolina, portion of that. And then I did increase the filter drive, which I just, in particular, I like the sound of the filter drive on synth patches like that. Okay. Resonance is about 28%, which I believe is the default. There's our frequency. As far as I know, yeah, it looks like we're not doing anything with LFO here. We're not doing anything to change that, nothing with pitch. Did increase our voices to 8 just so that we could play more of a pad sound. I guess I could and probably should increase that even more to like 20 if I'm playing pad patches, but I'm not a great keys player, so I can only play, you know, a couple notes anyway at the same time. So 8 voices works for me, but you may want to change that for you as you're just kind of fiddling and trying things out. So let's add our other oscillators in here. Okay, so listen to the difference that makes. Okay, it definitely brings that pad initial patch out. Okay, when we look at that, that's also a saw D. Attack, I think things are a little different there. Release is still pretty long to kind of make it function like a pad thing. But it just makes everything stick out a bit more, which is great. And again, that algorithm makes a difference. Let's just change the algorithm here so you can hear that. I mean, that's a cool sound too, if you wanted that, but you hear the difference just switching the algorithm makes. Having that spread at 100% is just awesome. Okay, let's go to our next one. I see that this one's a little different, and I think this is noise. Yeah, so this is what, square 3, which I guess isn't noise. It says square 3, but I guess it's 3-bit or whatever, so it is kind of noisy. Levels at 30%, and I think this is just to add noise. So let's hear it without it. It's minus 30, so it's pretty quiet. Let's bring it up. Oh, that's cool. So you hear that little high-pitched kind of thing that's happening. It's fine-tuned, so it's up an octave. Chorus is 2. Okay, so I guess that takes it up an octave. And then I'm tuning it with that. So I think we're down at about minus 30. Let's take that there. There we go, minus 30. So I mean, that's really subtle. I can increase that, yeah. Again, you can start to hear the like richness of sounds that comes from Operator. That's really cool. Let me leave it up actually a second. Let's bring chorus down to 1. You can hear that's the same octave. If I go 2, then it goes up an octave. All right, so super cool, super cool. Sounds a little out of tune too, which is 5e for synth stuff. Not so much for guitars, but for synth things, that's cool. Okay, let's go to our final one here, which is even lower, and let's see what that's adding. Let's increase it first. So let's, oh, actually, I remember now. That is to kind of recreate our sub gain thing. So I have that low. That's probably, yeah, sine wave. So the purpose of that is to recreate like the sub gain that's on wavetable if we need that, just to thicken up our low end. So if we keep it really low like this, and let's play kind of a low note here. Well, let's bring that in. Right, you can kind of hear how all of that sounds and how all that's affecting each other, which is kind of cool. So I like the sound. I like that as a starting place. Let's add to it. So again, we have that chorus, and the role of the chorus was to kind of thicken that up. So we'll go to audio effects. We're going to find our chorus here, and then we'll throw that in. Where is our chorus? Where's it gotten off to? Chorus, it's right there. Okay. Why can I not find it here? Audio effects. Compressor, chorus ensemble. There we go. That is because it's updated now for Live 11, and it's no longer called just chorus. It's chorus ensemble. So let's see if we can kind of recreate this. Again, when I'm talking pad stuff, width is 100%. Rate, again, I kind of like going crazy and then backing down. So let's go crazy. Okay, so I think I like that. And again, the goal of that is to thicken it up a little, to add some motion. The more I increase the rate here, right? The more I increase the rate, the crazier it sounds. But I think that's going to work for us, okay? So there's our chorus ensemble. Let's see what else we had in there. We had this delay thing. Okay, so let's go to delay. We'll drop this in, and this isn't doing a whole lot. It's just adding some feedback. So let's see what our settings we had here. What settings we had here. Okay, so we're on both of these sync. We're on 1. I think our feedback was kind of standard 58%. Yeah, we'll increase that a little. And then I do think I carved out the low end and the high end. Yeah, there we go. We did a filter about 1K. Okay, width is 4. There we go. I think that gives us our carve. Yeah. So it's basically carving out some of the low end, some of the highs, so that our repeats are more kind of mid-rangey. I have this set to fade so that as I change the time, actually, let me play that so you can hear it. So let's stay on repitch. Okay, and let's adjust the rate, and then you'll see what that sounds like. Which is a nice effect, but I actually want it to be fade, so if I were to change that time, it's just kind of it fades between those, right? And it doesn't jump automatically, it just kind of makes a smooth transition. Okay, let's see, anything else we did there? Modulation, 50, filter 0, time 0. I think that was pretty straightforward. And we did ping pong, which just takes them back and forth, which is, again, to me, is going to add a bit to that, the bigness, right? The wideness of the sounds. Let's try that. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. It's subtle. Let's see what it sounds like over here. Let's turn our chorus on, see how close we are. Yeah. Dry wet, in this case, is 34%. I think, yeah, that's a little high over here, 50. So we'll bring this down. A little more subtle, 34-ish. Now, let's get to our reverb. And this is one of my favorite things in live. I'm going to show one of my favorite tricks that I've been doing for years, that I remember the first time I showed a buddy of mine, Jacob, this. He was like, wait, what is that reverb that you've got? And I showed him how I programmed it. I don't know if it makes a difference. It at least makes me feel like it makes a difference and makes my sounds sound bigger and wider, particularly pads, but still allows them to cut through the mix. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So first off, the main kind of reverb for this is just the default Ableton Reverb, which is my favorites. So we'll just drop this on. Pretty much anything that can be wide and big is. Dry wet is at 100%. We'll talk about why that is in just a moment. Something I do in particular is that I always bump the quality up to high. To me, I feel like I can tell a difference. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. We see decay time is at about 5 seconds here. So let's increase that to about 5 seconds. And let me let you hear what that sounds like now, just as is. And it's not going to sound perfect, because I'll show you my trick that makes it sound perfect in just a second. Yeah, so man, I love that sound. I love the sound of Ableton's kind of default reverb. There's a couple things I might tweak in here, but the one thing, particularly if you're listening with headphones, the one thing you may hear with that is the sound of it is great, but it doesn't cut as much as it did. So let's take the verb off for a second, go back to our initial sound. Like, I really like the sound of that, but it doesn't have the wideness that I had with the verb. But once I bring the verb on, right, particularly increasing my decay time here, having the dry all the way up, again, it changes the way the initial sound sounds. I'm doing serial processing. I don't have any of the original signal in there. Everything is just kind of one thing in a row right now. It sounds good, but I still want some of the initial sound in there. I want a really reverby sound kind of layered in with my initial sound. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. Let's see if there's any other settings on our reverb we need to tweak. Sometimes I'll change the spin. Sometimes I'll decrease that, and you can kind of hear it. Really up there, a spin on the early reflection section. That kind of functions as a chorus. I already have a chorus in here, so I might take that off. And let's see. Let's actually turn, where's our rack? Right here. So we can see our settings that we had in there. So we left spin on the initial. We did turn chorus off in the initial because we have our chorus. So I'll definitely turn that off to save on some processing. I'll leave spin on because I left it on in the original one. Okay, so there's our verb. We increase our decay time, which again gives us great tone. Lets things almost self-oscillate a little bit. You got to be careful with pads not to go too far, but we're losing that initial punch, the initial cut through. So let's get that back. I could get it back by bringing my dry wet down like that. But I personally don't love that. So this is the trick that I do. So what I'm going to do is on this reverb, I'm going to right click. I'm going to do group. Okay. And that's going to put this in its own audio effect rack. Then I want to go to chains. Okay. And we're going to call this verb, because there's our verb chain. Dry wet is all the way back up to 100%. Our wet is at 100%. And we're going to leave our verb there. Then I'm going to right click and do create chain. Let me turn this off. Let me play with it off. Okay, now let's turn it on and let's compare the sound now. Now, you definitely have to be careful that you don't peak your volume. So one of the things I typically do is bring this verb level down on the chain here. So here's my verb chain that's a part of the audio effect rack. So I'll decrease that a little bit. I typically start with everything. As I add a chain, I tend to just bring it down by 4 dB. That's creature of habit. That's what I've been doing. So done for years. So okay, and what I like about that, again, I get that really long ring from the reverb, but I have that initial attack and cut from the initial sound, which I really like. Now, we're going a little longer than I intended to, so let me see if I can really quickly, let's get our shimmer verb going. And I'm cheating a little bit. There's this brand new verb in Live called hybrid reverb, which I could do a lot of what I did on the other one, but this is kind of how I'm using it. So I'm going to put this in the chain, and I believe... yeah, so I have this after my initial reverb here. So we're going to put this in the same chain. And this is a little different having it sitting like this. I'm going to change my algorithm to shimmer. And I'm going to do blend 100% algorithm. So I'm not doing any of the IR convolution stuff, which is great, but I'm not using it for this. Blend 100, decay is about 2.5. Just decrease that a little bit. Let's see what other settings we have on here. Pitch is 12. Yeah. So let's get that up, and shimmer is 100%. There we go. Shimmer is 100%. Let's see what our dry wet is. Dry wet is about 55%. And then we map that. Okay. Stereo is 100. So I could increase that if I really wanted to. And then we'll see, we'll map this in a second. We'll see if we do anything with EQ. Let's go in, see if I carved off any of the high end maybe. No, I didn't. Okay. I left that. That's surprising. I thought I would cut some of that, but it looks like I left that. Okay, so here's what it sounds like. Let's play with the shimmer in the chain now. There you go. You hear the shimmer, especially as we let go. Okay, so that's everything together. It sounds good. It doesn't sound to me as good as this patch does. And to me, that's because everything needs to come together as one instrument in an instrument rack. So I'm going to do a couple mappings. I don't know that I'll map everything, but I'll show you how I start to take something that to me, again, sounds good now, but it sounds a little bit like a disparate part, and I'm going to bring it together, and that's going to happen with my mapping. So I'm going to take all of this. We'll click on our operator. I'm going to scroll here. I'm going to hold shift, go to my audio effect rack here, and we're going to do group. That's going to group all of this in an instrument rack together. Okay, so you can see our chain, there's our operator, and let's go to our macros because we're going to start mapping some things here. First thing I'm going to map is my filter. So let's right click and let's map to macro 1. Let's play for a second. And actually, for the sake of this, we're going to go ahead and map just like we did our other preset so that that's also mapped. Do Command M, map this to our fader there. Okay, now let's play for a second. Again, for me, things are starting, I mean, that's a very small tweak. That's a very small change. Things are starting to come together just by putting everything into an instrument rack and adding that filter frequency, mapping that, and adding that, mapping that to this fader on my keyboard here. I'll show you that. So I've got it mapped here just like we did for the other one. Things are starting to come together for me with that. Just taking some of that high end off, making it like a... Nice kind of warm pad there. Kind of a nice vibe. I'm starting to like that. So let's see if we can map a few other things. I think for the sake of now, I'm probably going to skip our sub gain. We'll leave our filter drive just the way it is because I barely tweak that. But let's get our verb amount, our decay, shimmer amount, some of those things mapped so that we have access to that. So first, let's go to verb amount. I'm going to map this. And here's where it gets a little tricky that you want to think through. I'm going to map my verb amount to macro 1, which is going to map on this audio effect rack. And we'll call this verb amount. Okay. And then let's map our verb decay to macro 2. We'll call this verb decay. And then let's do our shimmer. Okay. So our shimmer is going to be our dry wet here. Let's right click that. We'll map to macro 3. And then we'll call this shimmer amount. And here's something I really like about this. Instrument racks, again, take separate, disparate parts, bring them together to make them feel like one instrument. I renamed a lot of those. You could see I just, map stuff and then click Command R to rename. And I'm remapping a lot of these controls. And then what I'm going to do is take these controls on this audio effect rack and map them to that main instrument rack here. So now let's right click on our verb amount. Let's map that to 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 5. Let's do verb decay is going to be 6. Shimmer amount is 7. So now we look at our main instrument here, and kind of at our main level, we have control of our filter frequency, our verb decay, shimmer amount. Just for consistency's sake, I'll go ahead and map my filter drive just because it pains me to not see it there. Okay. And then I want to map what I called unison here. And so the way I did that was this rate. Okay. So I have more controls available to me, but we just essentially mapped our amount and our rate. So let's do that here. So let's right click rate. We'll map to macro 4. Let's right click amount and we'll map to rate 2. So we're mapping 2 different controls at once. And as we adjust that, our rate increases and our amount increases. So let's play that. Okay. I'm happy with that. That works for me. So now let's do Command R. Let's call that unison. Okay. And then final thing we mapped was our volume. And I guess let's go ahead and do sub gain while we're here. We'll just map everything. And our volume is just mapped. If I right click here, you'll see remove mapping to operator volume. That's just our main volume here, -12. So we'll right click here. We'll leave that at -12 and we'll map this to macro 8. There's our volume. And then our sub gain is this right here. Okay. That's what we're calling sub gain. And so we'll do Command R and we'll call that sub gain. Okay. And now let's call this Epic Pad Recreation. And now we have this great instrument rack right here. That I have total control over everything from right on this instrument rack right here. So I can bring my unison down. I can decrease my sub gain, decrease my shimmer amount. I mean, everybody loves shimmer. It's a little too much for me for this pad sound. Verb amount, I could increase, decrease decay if I wanted. And then again, map these as you play, right? So I can filter that out, open up my filter. And that's what allows us to create, again, for me in Ableton Live, Instrument Racks brings everything together because I take everything that's a disparate, separate part, separate sounding thing, bring it all together to create, to me, what sounds like a great pad. All those individual pieces come together to create, again, what I think is a really great pad sound. And then on top of that, I put that in an instrument rack that makes everything super playable. Again, we can MIDI map to a MIDI controller. If you have faders, you have knobs, whatever you want. And again, that's an additional layer of flexibility and ability to adapt and change things. So thanks for joining me for episode 1. I promise future episodes, or maybe they will stay 30 minutes long. Hopefully will not be 30 minutes long, but I hope this was beneficial to you because again, I think one of the best ways to become a better sound designer, to get what's in your head through your fingers, or, whether you're playing a keyboard or just doing this in Ableton Live, into Ableton Live, capture those sounds that are in your head so that you can create the music that you love, whether it's live, playing with a band, or whether it's in the studio, recreating sounds that you've heard that you wish you could recreate with a patch or a preset live in Ableton Live. As a reminder, if you want to download this recreation preset that I have here, this Epic Pad Recreation for free, As a reminder, it does require Ableton Live 11 Suite. You could download the demo of that and try it if you want. Then click the link in the description of this video, or you can head to the From Studio to Stage site. We've included a link again there on how you can get that, and you can download this patch and preset for free. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next Sunday. Grab a cup of coffee, pull up your MIDI keyboard, work with me as we recreate things with the goal of becoming better sound designers and getting the sounds we hear in our head into Ableton Live. Take care, everybody. See you next week. Bye.